Naziyahharris. Let's get into it. This crime is very not only uncomfortable for most to hear, but it could also be very triggering. So let me drop the intro and I will be back. Now, if you are unaware of this whole story, it has been breaking news on the internet because officially we do have someone that's being prosecuted for the crime. But just a quick recap on this whole story and how we got to where we are a year later. Naziyahharris, I'm going to insert her photo here, was reported missing last year, January, by her guardians. She never made it home after school. She's been missing then. There have been searches. But what came to light during some of the search is that Naziyah was in an inappropriate, because it was not a relationship. I'm not too sure why people are saying relationship. She was in a very inappropriate relationship with her aunt's baby father slash boyfriend, where you can tell that he not only was grooming this child, but he was also actually involved with this minor. Through the last year, no one has heard from her. No one has seen her. So unfortunately, it has now been presumed that she is no longer with us. To date, this criminal, this particular individual, has not given any story as to where her remains are. So I don't see any closure much unless he decides to confess to it. But they were able to tie him as being the last person that saw her last day that she was, last seen, and she went with him. And unfortunately, that was the last time that anyone last heard from her. Now, as far as Naziyah's parents, her father is no longer with us. Her mother, I'm not too sure. I may have to do proper research on that. But somehow Naziyah was in the custody of her grandmother slash her aunts, of course, being around. As I mentioned, this individual that was, taking advantage of this child was the aunt's boyfriend, and his rap sheet slash background is just one. I don't even know how someone even greenlight or thought of dating him. I was able to hear on a podcast actually yesterday that the aunt that he was involved with met him at the age of 19. He explained to her all his crimes and all his prior run-ins, because this was not his first rodeo. He was arrested prior for not only the essay of one, but two. One of his victims being a 4-year-old that he unfortunately also passed along an STD. This man, once again, not once, not twice, and it's probably more victims out there that just have not spoken up yet. And the fact that he was out was really just mind-boggling to me, especially being that we have a victim as young as 4. The aunt said even with knowing his background, she dated him, which the whole family dynamic, and I'm not judging one because no one has a perfect family, but just the whole family dynamic, and also reading up that the grandma may have had her children at 11, Naziyah's mom may have had her at 13. It just shows that, this family dynamic has just been, let's call it spade. This baby just was born into a situation where if no one was going to create change, she was unfortunately going to go down the wrong path, which we are seeing during the court proceeding to lead up to where criminal charges are now being applied. They did include some very graphic and very disturbing text message between Naziyah and aunt, again, child's father slash boyfriend at the time, and the messages was just so graphic that I'm not going to repost them. But of course, if you go online, if you go on TikTok, Instagram, you can read, you could see it. I heard it, and I'm one and done, because another thing that's also coming out with these texts is a lot of grown women that are literally saying, well, she's grown, well, she was trying to be grown, or she knew what she was doing, this is to blame both of them. And I'm like, how are you blaming a child that more than likely was groomed? No, not even more than likely, that child was groomed. And the fact that I have been going back and forth for the past 24 to 48 hours with grown women online saying that this child was being grown just shows just how much Black girls, children altogether, but Black girls do not get the grace, do not get the space. Automatically, you want to be grown, you're acting grown, and all of that. They're not even perceived as victims, as the world just sees them as just these grown individuals that are capable of making choices. Mind you, she's 13. They think that this started from possibly 2 years ago. So that would have placed her, when she disappeared, she was 12. So that would have placed her at 10. There's no way that a 10-year-old could be grown enough to catch a grown predator. The trial is going to start in regards to Mr. Butts and his involvement. I do pray eventually that he will just go ahead and tell them where she is, even if they could just get the remains so the family can just put a closure to this, because she do have other families beside her aunt, beside her grandma, who was supposed to have been taking care of her. A cousin that came out that said, listen, when she went missing, it took them at least 24 hours to report her missing. Why? A 12-year-old? God, only God, he knows why it would take so long to report this poor baby as being missing. But at the end of the day, what I'm looking forward to with this trial, not only is some heavy, heavy sentencing, like not even having this man out, but also mandatory therapy for the aunts, and I know they're grown, but some type of mandatory counseling for the kids that's involved, because this to me is not only a lot for adults but way more for kids. And being that we have minors that the aunt shares with this predator, I do feel like the kids should definitely be given counsel. Hell, they need to basically do also a check on those kids, because you just never know. This man has been a predator, as I mentioned, many times before, because if more than once his way, he's been a predator before. So you don't even know who else. And if there's anyone out there that is, that this predator, preyed on, I pray that they get the strength to talk about it so it could come to light, because a lot of times these things are kind of kept in the family, swept underneath the rug. But no, we need to start bringing these out to the light, amongst so other things. In short, I did post a part 2 to this where I shared some things as as a parent, especially with the growth of social media, some things that you can do with your little people, because I just want to put this out there to say, don't ever say it could never happen to you. I don't care how great your relationship is with your kid. I don't care how much, you put in, how much you do for your kids, how you feel like, my daughter would never. Please understand that is probably where it could happen. Just a moment, just someone, online friends, just a moment. That's all it takes. That's all it takes is just one moment that could make an everlasting change for your life. So never look at this crime and say, well, that could never be my child because I know X and XY. Babes, it's happening. It's happening whether we like it or whether we don't like it. It is happening, and half the time it is happening right underneath our noses, right in our houses. As you can see, this one was right underneath everyone's nose, literally in the house, like literally in the house, that was shared not only with other minors, but of course the baby Naziyah, predator who was let in. As the crime and the story unfolds, I will probably come back and do an update, especially as it's closer to his sentences, because I do want to see how this all plays out. I also want to see possibly if there will be any other additional charges towards her guardian, aka grandma, aunts, and so forth. I also want to see if there's any other victims that may come forward. So y'all already know what to do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. I will tag the video where I am giving advice as far as parents again, and especially if you have middle school kids, this is a time to make sure that you are creating that safe space where your little ones could come and talk to you if they're having a problem, or if they're even just, having a good time. They could come in and check in with you, because I always tell parents, and myself, I'm learning it day by day, if you cannot be that safe space for your kids, if you cannot create that safe space for your little people, someone else will. And it's not going to look like what you want it to look like. So make sure that you are there for them. But don't know, peace, love, and blessing. Until the next video, later.